Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Diego, and I'm going to be talking about how skateboarding and punk rock helped each other grow from the 80's and peak in the 90's and early 2000s, and why I personally feel like it should make a comeback. Now, everyone knows what skateboarding is, even if they're not fans. A good point towards this is the fact that it was added to the Olympic Games in 2024, and it was one of the most watched events during that summer. Another point is that a lot of people know what punk music is, even if they're not fans. I mean, the Warped Tour was brought back this summer, and I was lucky to go. What a lot of people don't know is that they helped each other grow. This all started back in the 70's in California and but the popularity started really growing in the 80's. Now, even if you're not a fan of neither, if you are a fan of music or sports, you're going to want to stay and watch. I know they might seem like two completely different hobbies or professions. You got skateboarding and music, but one became synonymous with the other and helped each other grow beyond belief. I'm going to be talking about how skateboarding helped each other grow. At the beginning of the punk scene, you had bands like the Ramones, the Sex Pistols, the Clash, the Stooges, and a lot more coming out of the United Kingdom. That's a piece of information not a lot of people know. Punk music started in the United Kingdom, even though many people think it started in California. Going back to the bands themselves, these bands helped take the mostly unknown sound and shape it into the renditions of punk rock, the early renditions of punk rock. These bands would then go on to gain so much popularity in California that a lot of new bands started to emulate their sound and form their own. The reason for the sudden jump in popularity in California was due to the surfer anti-authoritarianism culture that was prevalent during that time. During this time, skateboarding was also making a jump in popularity. Even though it was invented in the 50's, it wouldn't become popular until the 70's. With the rise of both punk rock and skateboarding happening at the same time, and both cultures sharing a lot of similarities, like being free, being anti-authoritarian, and always listening and sticking up for themselves, the genre of skate punk was born in the 1980's. This started in California and very quickly made its way to the East Coast, mainly starting in Virginia. This started with bands like Social Distortion, NOFX, Pennywise, The Offspring, Dead Kennedys, The Vandals, Guar, Agent Orange, and so much more. Now, skateboarding in the 80's was just starting to find its footing. It had just become popular and people were trying to figure out its direction. This was when it was believed that people stopped skateboarding for fashion and started skating for passion and to make a living out of it. The biggest names to come out of skateboarding during that time were the very famous Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero, Rodney Mullen, Tommy Guerrero, Rat Bones, and so many more. These guys helped shape what skateboarding is today, and some still do, like Tony Hawk. During this time as well, there were numerous measures taken to stop the growth of skateboarding, and skate parks were starting to shut down. This is when skateboarders had to start getting creative, and that's when the plywood ramp was created and taken to the streets. This was the official start of the do it yourself movement in skateboarding. This also led to skateboarders using curbs, benches, railings, stairs, and other places that weren't usually considered. Uh, this was known as the birth of skateboarding. During this time, with the rapid growth in popularity for skateboarders, oh, yeah, during this time, with the rapid growth and popularity of skateboarding, a lot of influential brands started showing up as well. You had Thrasher, Santa Cruz, Vision, and the Bones Brigade being the top ones. Bones Brigade may have even produced some of the biggest and most influential skateboarders. They produced Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero, Rodney Mullen, Lance Mountain, Mike McGill, Bucky Lasek, Tommy Guerrero, and so much more. Without them, skateboarding wouldn't be what it is today. They were the first one to start designing the bottom of their skateboards. During this time, VHS tapes were starting to become readily available as well. And the Bones Brigade thought it was a good idea to release the first video with the Bones Brigade video show in 1984. They followed it up with Future Primitive in 1985 and Search for Animal Chin in 1987. And the music that was mostly used in those tapes was punk rock, although other were used. You can find Indalo Surfer in one of their smart blogs. As well, During this time, there was an underground skate park located in a country club in Virginia with one of the nastiest reputations for gore. Uh, Skaters believed it to be a rite of passage and that you had to do it at least once to be considered a true skateboarder. Everyone that has skated there has left with blood dripping, broken bones, and many more injuries. This was a place that punk bands also went and performed at. One of the biggest band contributors during the commentary Blood and Steel Cedar Crest Country Club was Guar. This band was formed in 1984 and continues to tour. They were actually on this year's Warped Tour, and personally, I think they had the best set. Everyone else was amazing and had some great music, but Guar actually put on a show with some amazing graphics and fan interactions throughout the set. Going back to the documentary, it's clearly shown that this was basically a mecca for skateboarders and a place for like-minded individuals to go and have fun and prove their skills. It was also a place that you had to go if you were a skateboarder or a punk rock artist. The park is still there today, although it's not as popular as it used to be. Now we jump into the 1990s. Skateboarding and punk rock were nearing their peak in popularity and started coming out with festivals and events. The biggest of which are the Warped Tour for punk rock and the X Games for skateboarding. The Warped Tour was created in 1995 by Kevin Lyman and Ray Woodbury. Kevin Lyman is actually a professor now. Uh, they they not only had a lot of popular bands there, but they actually helped elevate artists to stardom that they weren't really well known at that time. Artists like Avril Lavigne, Blink 182, Sum 41, Yellow Card, and so many more. Then you have the X Games, which was created in 1995 as well. This was the first big televised annual event held for skateboarders. They have had some historic moments in the X Games, like when Tony Hawk did the first 900 spin, the first front flip on a snowmobile, the first backflip on a motorbike, among many more. And during all these moments, do you know what type of music was playing in the background? It was punk rock. Going back to Tony Hawk landing the first ever 900 spin in 1999, a lot of companies were trying to develop a skateboarding game and they wanted to use him and his brand. Now, he said that he would only do it if they would bring the culture and the correct movements to the video game. Once the game was being developed, it was actually during that time when he landed the first 900, and the developers had to rush to add it to the game without delaying it any further. When the game was finally released, it was an instant success. It was one of the most popular games that year, and it brought skateboarding to the forefront. A lot of people who had no idea about skateboarding now really worked to learn from the game. Also, when speaking with the LA Times, Tony Hawk said that the goal was to create a game that was fun for skaters to play. He said, I just didn't think we were creating a revolution. He also went on to say, I think it helped to create our sport, skateboarding and action sports in general as a genre of games. It definitely got a lot more people interested in skating itself. It introduced a whole generation to a genre of music they may have never experienced. And I mean, it just completely changed my life. End quote. So Tony Hawk knew that with that, after the success of that game, he knew how many people that didn't know about all this were brought into the genre of skateboarding and punk rock. Th- Another aspect that made the game so successful was the soundtrack, as I was saying. It was punk rock and it helped a lot of unknown bands get some attention. They didn't have a lot of big budget for bands that were well known, so they added one or two songs that were already well known and added a bunch of songs that from bands that nobody knew. They went from playing in small venues to full-blown concerts. Like Jeff Hirschberg of the Speed Dealers said in Rolling Stones, "We were touring 300 days out of the year back then. Our label called one morning and said, they're making this video game, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. They want you to contribute a couple of songs to the soundtrack. They had already picked the songs they wanted, Screamer and Nothing to Me. We immediately said yes. We were very unknown at the time, so they gave us a little bit of money and all the exposure." Now we fast forward to 2021. This is when skateboarding made its debut in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. It was still considered a taboo sport for most of the world, even though it was still a popular sport in the United States and But other countries believed it to still be a sport mainly consisted of degenerates and people that aren't the best influence. Then, with its inauguration in the Olympics, popularity instantly grew worldwide. I mean, Marjolin Didal, the skater who competed for the Philippines in the Olympics, said, before they were like, oh, skaters, skating, there's no future. But after the Olympics, people were like, oh, skaters, Margie. It's an eye opener to everyone that skateboarding has a future. And she continued to explain how immediate the switch in attitude was in her home country. They did go skateboarding one day. They did go skateboarding day. I missed it, but like in the Philippines, they celebrated. They sent videos and they got a permit to do a parade. So it's pretty cool. Then we also have Pamela Rose. She's considered the number one street skater in the world, all the way from Brazil. She went on to say, skateboarding used to be a marginalized sport. Now we are so much more respected. So many kids want to practice. Many parents are coming to the sport with a different mind, and the visibility is growing. These quotes were found directly in the Olympics website. And then going to 2025, the Warped Tour Festival was brought back to life. And like I said, I was one of the lucky people that actually got to go there. It was so big that they actually sold out of tickets 2 months prior to the event. Now, I know some people may be thinking that just because the two have a history together, it doesn't mean that one is the reason the other grew. Others might say that even though they are skateboarders, they don't listen to punk music, and some who listen to punk music might not even know anything about skateboarding. To the first argument, I would just like to say look at the history. Even though they started out separately and possibly could have grown up without the other, you can't deny that the impact that the one had on the other was monumental. Punk rock started drastically rising in popularity when skate punk came around, and skateboarding became popular with the use of punk rock music in the background of their montages, and became a staple when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released. For those saying the second argument, I understand that not all skaters listen to punk rock. A lot of them actually listen to hip hop and metal music. To that, I will say that even though you don't listen to punk, punk has integrated aspects of both genres to make it successful and appealing to the skating community. Punk has aspects of metal. Punk has aspects of hip hop. You got bands like Rage Against the Machine, Beastie Boys. Those are punk bands that have hip hop and metal integrated into them. So, in conclusion, I just want to say punk rock and skateboarding helped catapult each other into popularity. It started in the 80's and they did plateau in the early 2000s. They are slowly making a comeback right now. I hopefully I want it to hopefully come back and be as popular as it used to be in the 80's and the 90's. And I hope this video has helped to teach you about the history of skateboarding and punk rock and how they helped each other grow in popularity. And I hope this video inspired you to look more into the history of it and become a fan of it as well. Thank you. And just to show you how amazing Guar is, I'm going to end it with some clips of their show and a picture of how I looked after it.
Step right up, yes, come on. Labias and genitals. Leave your troubles at the door and prepare to have your feeble little minds blown. Allow me to introduce myself, a man who needs no introduction. Raxor, the ringmaster. And I am here to tell you the tale of the rise of the Tyrant King. Our tale begins on a dark and stormy night. A rickety old circus train on a crash course for certain disaster. What could go wrong? Can you see it? There, in the distance, a tiny pinprick of light slowly approaching. Can you hear the mournful wail of the steam whistle as it gets closer and closer? Can you feel the growing sense of impending doom? I mean, surely it will veer off and miss us. Who would be fool enough to build a rock and roll stage on an active train track? But still, it gets closer and closer. It's going to hit. Oh, look out, look out.
Back to Antarctica, and we loved it, and we cared for it, we raced it, and we did like any good parent would do. We shot it full of fucking crack cocaine. Crack cocaine. You got any?
You guys got any drugs to give Guar tonight, you fucking
Ah,
bitches?
yes, please.